Paris, 1865. The guards at the Salon are not protecting the art from thieves. They are protecting it from the visitors, specifically from their umbrellas. A painting has been hung so high, deliberately high, to keep it out of arm's reach that people are still finding ways to lunge at it. Critics call it an obscenity. One calls it a female gorilla. The painter, a well-dressed Parisian who very much wanted to be respectable, is being compared to a man who has dumped garbage on the floor of the Louvre. His name is Edouard Manet. The painting is called Olympia, and within 50 years, it will hang in the most prestigious museum in France. To understand Olympia, you have to understand the world it was born into, and that world was controlled by a jury. Every year, the Académie des Beaux-Arts held the Paris Salon, the single most important art exhibition in the Western world. A jury of academicians decided who got in and who did not. In 1863, they rejected roughly 3,000 works. This was not unusual. What was unusual was the noise the rejected artists made about it. The complaints reached Napoleon III himself, who, and this is documented fact, recorded in the official correspondence of the Maison de l'Empereur, ordered that the rejected works be displayed in a separate exhibition, so the public could judge for themselves. The Salon des Refusés opened on May 15, 1863 in the same building as the official salon. The crowd came. They laughed, they jeered, but they came in enormous numbers. And among the works they laughed at longest was a large canvas by a 31-year-old painter named Edouard Manet, Le Déjeuner sur l'herbe, a picnic, two men in modern clothes, two women, one of them completely, unapologetically naked, looking directly at the viewer, not looking away, not being allegorical about it, just looking. Here is where the story gets interesting. The salon was full of nudes, every year. Mythology was practically a delivery mechanism for acceptable nudity. Venus rising from the sea, Diana caught bathing, nymphs doing whatever nymphs do. The Academy had no objection to the female body. They had a very specific objection to Manet's female body. The woman in Le Déjeuner is not a goddess. She is not gazing into the middle distance with the vague expression of allegory. She is a real person. The model was Victorine Meurent, a professional who worked with several painters of the era, and she is looking at you. The men beside her are not mythological figures either. They are dressed the way men dressed in Paris in 1863. The scandal was not indecency. The scandal was insolence. Manet had taken the grammar of the old masters. Art historians have documented clear compositional references to a Raphael engraving and a Titian, and used it to describe Tuesday afternoon. The Academy found this, to use their word, vulgar. What they meant was threatening. Manet was rattled. Contemporaries noted it, and his letters from the period, held at the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, confirm a man trying to decide whether to press forward or retreat. He pressed forward. In 1865, he submitted two paintings to the official salon, the jury that had previously kept him out. Both were accepted. One was a religious painting of Christ, which received mild reviews. The other was Olympia. It had actually been painted in 1863, the same year as the Déjeuner. Some scholars believe it was always the more radical of the two, held back deliberately. What hung on the wall of the salon that May was a reclining nude on a white bed, attended by a black maidservant holding flowers, with a black cat at her feet. The model again was Victorine Meurent. The pose quoted Titian's Venus of Urbino almost precisely. This is not speculation. Art historians have traced it in detail. But Titian's Venus is soft and dreaming. Olympia is awake. She is wearing a slipper and a flower in her hair and a ribbon around her neck, and she is looking at you the way someone looks at you when they have decided they are not afraid of you. The response was immediate and by any measure extraordinary. This is documented in the contemporary press, and the reviews survive. Jules Clarity wrote in L'Artiste that Olympia was a sort of female gorilla. Amédée Cantalaube called it a yellow-bellied odalisque. The sheer volume of hostile attention was so great that the salon administrators moved the painting, twice, by most accounts, eventually hanging it very high on the wall, above the sightline, to reduce access. The story of guards protecting the painting from umbrellas appears in multiple contemporary accounts and has been repeated by serious historians. Whether every telling of it is precise reportage or has accumulated some embroidery over the decades, that is genuinely difficult to verify at this distance. What is certain, documented in the press, is that the crowd's response was physical as well as verbal, and that the salon took protective measures. What is also certain is that Manet received hate mail. His letters describe it. He retreated to Spain that summer, partly, it seems, to escape. But here is the twist in the story. People came, they kept coming. Olympia attracted one of the largest crowds of any work in the salon that year. Hatred, it turns out, is also a form of attention. Let us be precise about what was at stake, because it was not really a painting. It was a category. The Academy's system rested on hierarchy. History painting at the top, then portraiture, then genre scenes, then landscape, then still life. Mythology and allegory were the languages of the highest form. When Manet borrowed those visual languages and applied them to contemporary Paris, to Tuesday afternoon, to a working model, to a woman who quite clearly knew she was being painted, he was not just being provocative. He was dismantling the hierarchy. If Olympia counts as serious painting, then the whole ladder collapses. The critics understood this perfectly. Their anger was the anger of people watching a framework dissolve. And Manet, to his credit, seems to have understood exactly what he was doing. He wrote to the poet Baudelaire, the letters are cited by every serious biographer, that he did not know why there was so much fuss. He had simply painted what he saw. This may be the most elegant act of provocation in the history of Western art, to commit an act of revolution while maintaining perfect composure. Manet never fully recovered his desire for official approval, which is one of the sadder ironies of this story. He kept submitting to the Salon for the rest of his life. He craved the Légion d'honneur with a kind of aching sincerity that his avant-garde admirers found slightly embarrassing. He received it in 1881, 2 years before he died of locomotor ataxia. He was 51. Olympia itself had a peculiar afterlife. After Manet's death in 1883, it remained with his widow. A group of his supporters, led by Claude Monet, who organized the effort and wrote the letters, raised money by subscription to purchase the painting and donate it to the French state. The campaign is documented in Monet's correspondence. The goal was to place it in the Louvre. The state accepted it nervously and placed it first in the Luxembourg Museum, the holding room for living artists, or in this case recently dead ones, before it moved to the Louvre in 1907, and eventually to the Musée d'Orsay, where it hangs today. The journey from umbrella target to national treasure took roughly 40 years. That is, by art historical standards, practically overnight. So here is where the ledger closes. The Salon des Refusés opened because an emperor was irritated by the volume of complaints. It became the founding moment of modern painting, the point from which Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and most of what followed can be traced in a more or less straight line. Olympia was mocked, threatened, hidden high on a wall. It is now one of the most analyzed paintings in the Western canon. The critics who called it garbage are remembered only because they called it garbage. Manet, who never stopped wanting the establishment's approval, became the man who broke the establishment apart simply by painting honestly. The jury system that humiliated him in 1863 is a historical footnote. The paintings they rejected are priceless. None of this was planned. It emerged from a collision between institutional fear and one man's stubborn insistence on painting what he actually saw. And perhaps that is the real crime in this story, not provocation, not scandal, but the system's fury at being shown, very calmly, that it was afraid. The question I keep returning to, and I'll leave it with you, if you had been standing in that salon in 1865, knowing nothing of what came after, would you have been in the crowd laughing at Olympia, or the one uncomfortable person trying to figure out why you couldn't look away?